Welcome to, I guess you want to lead us in prayer? Yeah. Welcome to the Reapportionment Committee meeting. Sorry we're late. We were doing some judiciary work down the hall. A very important dog biting bill that I wish y'all could get to hear, but I don't guess you're going to. Yeah. If you've ever been bit by one, you'd realize it was an important bill. Representative Jurgensen, if you'd lead us in prayer before we start, please.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the rain that we have in the area. We ask that you continue to lead, guide, and direct us and give this committee wisdom as we start working through the process at hand. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. And since I'm presenting House Bill 420, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Representative Jurgensen, who chaired the subcommittee that heard this bill and passed it up to this committee, and I'll move down there so y'all can throw things at me or applaud or whatever you want to do. Representative Jurgensen. Your district's already grown.
That's a joke. Well, good morning. As we start, make sure everybody's working off the same copy. We have a substitute to House Bill 420. It's LC 285658S. Okay, we need one copy over here. Does anybody else need a copy of that substitute? All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman. Oh.
Turn, yeah, turned on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, now you got me. Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for being patient and waiting on us this morning, not that we had any choice. House Bill 420 is a little bill that came to my mind as I was working on redistricting. Several members had asked some of us about, well, do we have to do the redistricting for the counties, and how does that work? And having not been here 10 years ago when redistricting was last done following the census of 2000, did a little research looking at it and realized that the counties did not have the authority to do redistricting of their county commission districts on their own, that it had to be done by a local act done by the local delegation presented in the legislature and passed in order to do the redistricting. Municipalities do have a provision in the law that allows the cities to do that, to do redistricting of the city council seats and not have to go through a local act of the legislature. But the local legislators have the power to override the city's redistricting or to present a local bill if they wanted to redistrict the cities, but it's not a necessary step. So looking into it, I didn't see where the counties should have to go through an additional step of going through a local delegation in order to get their redistricting done. And so I proposed to the committee to consider. I'm not sold on doing this one way or the other, but I think it's probably an unnecessary step for us to have to local delegation to have to present a redistricting plan for the counties that we should. I know in my counties, I've told them I want them. They do their drawing of the districts and they present it to me to bring up here to do a local act, and it seems to be more efficient to allow the counties to do that, to do their redistricting, and we put in the bill that they comply with the Constitution and with the Voting Rights Act and all the things that we have to comply with. So that's what House Bill 420 is doing, is allowing the counties to do their redistricting and to do it without having to go through a local act. And you can only do it for a specified period of time. In Section A on line 16, we limit the governing authority of a county as authorized to adjust such districts only during the period beginning with the publication of the decennial census data and ending with the beginning of qualifying for the next regular general election for members of the county governing authority. So it's limited that the counties could do the redistricting just during that limited time period following the release of the census data and the next general election. And we go on to provide kind of the qualifications for that in the next section, Section B. And then in Section C, this code section would not prohibit the General Assembly from enacting a local law at any time to amend the local act creating a county governing authority in order to reapportion or otherwise change their election districts. We reserve the right as legislators to do that at any time. All we're doing with this bill, if we decide to pass it, and I'm in favor of passing it, of course, is giving them the right, but we have the right to override them if we think they're doing it, improperly or something. We have the right to override that decision over our counties. So I think it's a more efficient way to do it. We still reserve the right for a delegation to redistrict any county that they are elected from if they choose to. I don't think it's a good idea to get involved in local politics very much like that, but sometimes you have to. You represent the same folks, so if the county commission is playing with a district some way and you feel that it's not representing your constituents properly, then under this bill we would be allowed to do it ourselves and present it as a local act to the legislature to do, just like you can do right now. It really doesn't change anything as far as what we can do. It just takes out that one unnecessary step, in my opinion, of having to present either draw it up with a local delegation and present as a local act, or have your counties, in most cases, counties draw them up. The cities do it the way that we recommend here, and it's worked well for the cities to do it. Turn off your cell phones when you come in. I want to see if that's my wife.
That would be a wise decision.
Someone I've got to take. But the cities, the cities have always had, municipalities have always had this power to do their redistricting or redrawing their city council seats without having to have a local act introduced. But there's still the option there for local delegation to do that for the cities, and it's a very small number. And I think there may be someone here to speak to that with some data on the number of redistrictings done by the cities and how many times local legislation has been introduced. It's like 6 out of 600. It's a very, very small number of times that it'd be necessary for a legislator to look at and say this just isn't right, and I need to override what the cities did. And so we're trying to set it up where the county can do that. With that, I'd be glad to take questions. I know it's it's not really complicated, but it sounds complicated. And
okay, go ahead and start questions. Number 14, Representative Howard.
Number 14 is Representative Sharon B.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, Representative.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
yes, Representative.
Well, let me ask the chairman up here first question. No, I need to ask you because you assigned these committees, right?
Do what?
The committees, the subcommittee that heard this bill.
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
Just trying to get a feel of what's going on. I've been drawing lines since 1982, elected since 1993, and what I'm trying to get clear on the number, how many persons was here when this list of 2001, 2001, when they had these different dates that they said they drew lines the last time on the committee that heard this bill.
Well, I don't believe.
Okay, there's a sheet on the back of this green folder. It says Joint House Senate Reapportionment Committee, Spring 2001, schedule of public hearings. And I want to know how many persons that heard this bill was here when that was done, that was on your committee, Mr. Jurgensen, that heard it.
Okay.
If they were here in 2001 on your committee,
okay,
how many persons did you have that was here then?
Talking about the subcommittee
The
meeting?
subcommittee that heard this bill.
I don't have the answer to
Okay,
that. I
the
don't know.
people are here, aren't they?
Some of them are.
Yeah, Representative Black was here.
Representative Black.
Okay, so you were on his committee the other day that heard this bill?
I was. I
Thank
didn't understand the question.
That
I thought
was
you were
the-
asking if I was in 2001. I apologize.
Okay, it's probably twofold. How many people here on that committee on Monday at 10 o'clock that heard this bill that was here in 2001? That what? Okay. Thank you.
You're the only one, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm trying to get a feel of who would understand what it takes to draw lines and to do reapportionment for the counties, to approve what the cities have done, who would actually know the lines to be able to, because all politics are local, and this is a local piece that's dealing with at least my county. I don't know about the rest of them. So I'm trying to figure out if they knew enough to understand what it looks like when you handle this type of stuff. That's what I'm trying to get here.
Okay.
So absence of that, I want to know, have the counties sent you letters saying they wanted this piece of legislation,
No,
Mr. Chairman?
no. But the ACCG does support it, and they have, I don't know if they sent stuff out to their members or not, but they do support the bill because
Okay.
it gets back to local control. It lets the counties draw their districts for their county commission seats themselves, which they do now. Basically, I think they do that anyway. All this does is eliminate the necessity of having to do a local act in the by the legislators and present a bill and do it through the legislature to approve what the counties do. We're just trying to remove that restriction that they can do it by themselves. The counties can draw theirs, present it to the Department of Justice for pre-approval under the Voting Rights Act, and then implement it without going through us having to do 159 different. If every county did a redistricting this go-round, we'd have 159 local bills to get those approved. And the cities don't have to do that. They just draw their lines and submit them to the Department of Justice, and then they are in place. And that's what we're trying to do for the counties, is put them in the same, this bill would put them in the same position that the cities are, and would be more efficient from a legislator standpoint, I think, to just let the counties do their redistricting, and then we certainly look at it, and if we want to change it by a local legislative act, we could. But it'd be a rare instance where that would happen, because like you say, all politics is local, and I know that I, as a legislator, do not want to get involved in my county's drawing of their county commission districts unless they're abusing it some way and not representing our constituents properly in redrawing the districts. So all this is doing is saying we don't have to do it by local act. The counties can do it.
Okay.
Representative, I've got a lot of questions on the board.
Okay,
I'll
let me
come back
finish
to
now.
you.
And I'm sorry I missed the meeting on Monday, and I want to be clear on certain things that I couldn't get the answers from some of the people that thought they heard something in the meeting.
Okay,
I'm
I'll
sorry.
come back
Okay,
to you.
okay.
I'll come back to you. Representative Black.
I just, when Representative Fee raised the question about who was here in 2001, went through a reapportionment, I just sort of looked back over my shoulder, and there's not a whole lot of us that's been through this. I was on that subcommittee and listened to this, and the chairman and I had this debate at that time. My position is, I don't know of any problems that the local systems have had. We have dealt with some situations to where local governments got into some things that was not good. And the requirement that they have to have local legislation meant that the local delegation had to sign on board, and when they didn't, they had to, local governments had to go back and correct the problems. Now, this still provides that option. The only difference is that you've got now the fact that they've got to come get the approval of the local delegation. Whereas if you pass this thing through, then the local delegation would have to be proactive and jump in, and there's a little difference right there. It's a lot easier before they take action if they know they have got to get the approval of the local delegation to get things through. If anyone knows of any situations that we have had that has not gone well, I'd be interested in knowing about it. I think that this right here will make it to the point that it would be a little bit bigger step to jump in and deal with a situation where a local government has gone into doing some things that where they're gerrymandering for a particular purpose on a local issue. I mean, I can see why this would take out the need to run these bills through. But at any rate, I wanted to get this point across, and I'm going to have to be excused because I got a meeting in the Speaker's office right now, so I'm not going to have to get a chance to vote on this. But I wanted to get the point before y'all that this is going to make it a little bit more difficult for you to deal with a situation that might be confronting you. And you still got that power, as the chairman says.
Okay.
But you won't have that much power in advance when they're sitting here planning on doing a gerrymandering for whatever purpose. At any rate, y'all excuse me. I've said my piece.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Talton.
My question, are the school board set up similar to this too? That's all, man.
School boards would still have to be done by local act. They do not have home rules, so they cannot draw their own districts. We would have to do that by local act. In my 4 counties, all the school board districts are the same as the county commission districts, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what impact that would have on the on those school board districts if we didn't have to do the county by local act, whether or not that'd be a legal question for whoever our lawyers that are here to answer that question, whether that would take care of the school boards or if you still would have to do a local act to get your. I suspect we'd have to still do a local act for the school boards, and that's one of the problems with this with my bill is that we're still going to be involved in having to redistrict or introduce local legislation in regards to school board districts. That's a good question. That's one that's bothered me since I started looking at this as to how you handle that, and we never could come up with a way that you really could handle it other than by local legislation.
Thank you. Representative McKillop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, a delicate question. At line 27, and I don't want to put a target on the backs of the cities that are city or counties rather that are redrawing these lines, and the inevitable lawsuits that come. My question is, when we say only to the extent reasonably necessary, that's a pretty easy target for someone to say, you didn't. All you have to do is show up with a slightly different map and say you drew it in a way that was more than only to the extent reasonably necessary. And I was wondering, is that language that's lifted from case law, or the standard, or is that something that we could remove?
That's something that I would prefer to be removed. I think it's a good question. This came out of the House Bill 420 came out of what's in the statute for the cities already, and that sentence does create, that part of that sentence does create problems, and I would certainly support and would push for an amendment to take out only to the extent reasonably necessary, because I think that sets us up for more potential litigation.
I'll look at some language right now.
Okay.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Reinders, please. Or Chairman Reinders.
Thank you. Am I on?
You're on.
Thank you. We had in the subcommittee talked about the unintended consequences, and I just want to make sure that on the substitute that I'm correct before we talk about it further, if I may. We had talked about the unintended consequences, and I'd like to get your opinion, Mr. Chairman. If a local governing authority, the county commission under the current substitute bill, were to say these are the maps and these are the ones we want. In a county where there's 2 members of the local delegation, and 1 member of the local delegation says, I object to those, to the process, to the lines, it is your understanding that what happens then?
Well, you would have to do a local act, I would think, to override the under this bill.
Mm-hmm. Under the substitute.
The local delegation would have to agree on a local act to override what the county did.
All right. If I may continue this train of thought, if it's your understanding that a local act would then be required, and as the former chairman of the committee that handles local acts, I know on counties where there's 2 members that it would take unanimous consent by those 2 members, and knowing that that doesn't always happen, some representative or senator potentially could in fact say, no, I object, and therefore no local act could ever happen. So then what happens? Do the maps stand back home?
I'd have to rely on our lawyers to tell us what would happen then, but my guess would be that it would...
I refuse to sign the redistricting map for that county.
That it would stay in place the way the county drew it under this bill, I think.
Okay. And I would agree with that particular interpretation if there's nothing in here that addresses that. All right, I would agree with that. Now my mind takes me to a gerrymandered map or a process flawed map where 3 county commissioners whispers to my friend Willie, state representative, who only has 2 precincts in that county, and says, I need you to object, knowing that that would force their map to stand.
Yeah.
As you currently understand it, could that scenario happen in this bill?
Yes. And we also discussed the possibility of changing the rules for local delegations in regards to redistricting, and have a special rule for redistricting that any one representative could do a local act and could get it to the floor without meeting the requirements for other local legislation, and let the House then decide it.
Thank you so much for what I would consider a wonderful segue. You and I had the opportunity to discuss that one particular dilemma, and there's other dilemmas. And at the advice of the chairman the other day, I sought out help from Mr. Lamb, who's been doing these kind of things for 30-some-odd years. And he had a series of recommendations that I apologized to the chairman that I wasn't able to get you prior to the meeting, out of a courtesy to our friends at ACCG who wanted some input as well. And so the time just kind of got away from us, and I apologize for not giving a heads up. But I do think that that is the most obvious unintended consequence of this particular piece of legislation, where it could be perhaps finagled at the local level, and we would give up that authority. I don't know how to proceed further, because I think it would be inappropriate with this list of potential recommendations, and certainly not all of them. Some are more worthy than others. I just certainly think that in due diligence on something as important as this, that I owe you the courtesy of asking you in a non-public environment. Let's game this out and see what's in the best interest of the local.
You want to step outside?
But I do think, and I'm not. I'd love to hear from Matt Hicks at ACCG. I think he was also interesting to say, well, if there could be a problem area in this many cases, can we potentially make it just this many? And that's good for all of us. And I think that was the intent. So, additionally, I would like members of the committee to know that there is information, and I appreciate the Association of County Commissioners for providing me with this. Here's the reapportionment that was done last time affecting counties, and at a brief count, I can tell you that there were 16 that through the local act did not pass the General Assembly, and one was vetoed by the governor. And I would suggest that that in itself is evidence enough to say that, unfortunately, one bad apple can ruin it for the rest of us, but there's at least 17 potential bad apples right there that we would potentially give up our authority to be able to go in and take that kind of corrective action. And I thank the ACCG for this information.
Okay.
That's not a question, but
Mr.
just
Chairman,
want to give you information. Is that not true? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, would you like to respond?
The municipalities still have had that authority all along to do their redistricting without going through a local legislation, and it's worked fairly well, except in limited circumstances. I don't think you can solve every circumstance in a bill. So
I was hoping to know
pardon?
the likelihood of it happening.
Yeah, well, that's important, and I'm certainly open to whatever. I mainly just bring this. I thought it's a good idea we ought to be looking at and considering whether we want to do this or not. I personally am in favor of giving it back to the counties, but my counties are different than your counties, or different than other members' counties, and you may see a lot of other problems. All of mine were pretty much, we're going to draw all these districts, and you do the local act and introduce it, and I don't intend to change it any. I wouldn't think anybody on the committee would be wanting to change the districts that their county commissioners came up with for redistricting, except in rare circumstances. So I think that's a rare occasion when that'd be an issue. But the cities still have, they've operated fine under the procedure that I'm recommending for the counties.
Thank you. Representative Howard.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this to us for discussion. I think it's always healthy to talk about things, new ways of doing things. But I listened to Representative Black, and as many of you know, I've been around this process. I've never engaged into it, but I've been around it, with my family that preceded me. And listening to Representative Black, I think he made a point that we probably really need to hear and listen to. It puts a gap between your local government and your local legislators, and we all are elected by the same people, as you said. And it spreads that gap, whereas I think we should be trying to close the gap and have a stronger working relationship. And as we try to do things like this, I'm trying to figure out what's broken in the previous way that we did it, that we are fixing right now, that will actually be a benefit to all of us, not just, the local, but us as legislators. What's broken about the previous procedure, the way we did it, and the way you're proposing that we do it now?
Appreciate those comments. I don't think that anything's broken, but I think that this procedure that House Bill 420 recommends is more efficient, as a more legislatively efficient way to handle the redistricting for the counties. Okay. So there's nothing really broken. I just think that it's a better way to do it, a more efficient way to do it. And in my case, I'd have to do 4 local acts for the 4 counties that I'm involved in order to get their redistricting done, and that's fine. I mean, that's no problem. But I don't see the necessity that I'm going to accept the redistricting they give me and come up here and do a local act and get it passed by the legislature, which is going to tie up a lot of our time, I think, unnecessarily, perhaps. So it's not because it's broken. I didn't have anything to say it's broken. I had the 2 different procedures that I ran into looking at and answering some of the questions about what do we do with the counties and the cities. And the city had one procedure and the counties had another procedure. And the city's procedure to me looked more efficient and better way to do it than the one we have for the counties right now. Certainly legislators can disagree with that and feel that we should stay more involved But I think you're still going to be involved in the redistricting for those counties. They're going to use our reapportionment office. They're going to use us to get to the reapportionment office to get the information that they need to do the redistricting. And they're going to keep us engaged, I think, in that process just like they're doing now. We just don't have to go the extra step and have to do a local act unless they do it in a way that we think is improper.
On the efficiency part, I think I take that as something that would save us in time and money or something. So is there some savings in this?
Well, I think there'd be some savings because not much, I don't think, but we do have to print all the local acts. And if you go back, and I went back and looked at the volumes for the local acts going back to 2001, and they expand greatly during reapportionment times when we're doing local acts for every county. So there's a little expense there in printing costs and that kind of. It's not, it's not a significant expense. I just think as a legislator with my counties, I'd just as soon not be involved in those redistricts unless I had to.
Last point. In the previous way that it was done, did not the cities present maps to their local delegations for some consideration or approval?
Some of them were done by local acts.
Right, and that was
some of the cities, and you certainly have the right still to do that. The county could present it to you and ask you to do it by local act, and I guess you could, just like any other local act that affects your counties. You certainly still have that authority.
Yeah, and I thought that sort of helped keeps that was the liaison of the connection between keeping the dialogue between the local delegations and the local officials, consistent.
Yeah, I don't think this bill would get us out of that dialogue. It would get us out of the next step of having to do a local act unless we disagree with what the counties did.
Thank you, Chairman Smith.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this thought-provoking bill to us, because I think that's what you're doing is challenging how we're thinking about things. And for several years, I served on what was the old State Planning Community Affairs Committee, and we dealt mainly with local legislation, and we got in-depth on a lot of things. But one of them, I hope I remember this correctly, is that we create our cities with our local act, but constitutionally we have created our counties. So there is a real and distinct difference between the actions for a city and the actions we take for counties because of that constitutional formation. I think I'm correct on this. If there's an attorney all right, so I'm getting a nod that that's correct. That begs the difference in our debate that we're having, and although we want to look at our counties and cities as equal, and believe me, they want us to look at them that way, that I've been through. I was here in 2001 and went through all these things, and it's a lot easier to have them do it, but yet I think we're given the charge as a legislative body to be the state leaders in these types of situations. And when you see the strength of a constitutional amendment versus the creation of a local act, I think it implies that power that we have to have. And I know that with our school boards and our counties, there was a lot of debate that took place as to how to match up these different regions, because they knew that they had to come to us, and so it kind of kept that conversation and made that lining up a priority, whereas a lot of times it might not have been. I don't know which way. I understand the efficiencies. I understand what you're saying. I think that constitutional provision explains the difference between the way we look at cities, the way we look at counties. And one time I had to draft legislation that actually had to get rid of a city because it didn't meet all the criteria to be a city, and it was a horrible problem. So believe me, I don't want those problems. But I really feel like the Constitution has spoken for us as to the difference between the two and the responsibilities we have as a body. And partly, I will tell y'all, it's a lot easier to interact and be engaged in the process before it comes to us, because the way this is, our role will be to say, no, absolutely not, and it just sets a different set of dialogue that can be avoided if we don't do it. If we leave it the way it is, and I've talked to rural county people. I know the larger cities and counties with the debates I have. My delegation is simple right now, but they're delegations of 20 people, and so to go down this path, probably a lot more thought, because I have not made up my mind. I'm just raising these questions, but it's has more consequences maybe than we thought. I understand the efficiency issue, but having been through this process a few times, there is something to be said, the constitutionally given power to the General Assembly on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think, the idea is a good idea. But listening to the comments, I'm having to find myself sort of siding with all the comments I'm hearing here. But I think the idea is great. I do believe that this should be something that brought to this body from, it's nothing wrong with them to say outline what they want, but I think this body should have some say-so or authority once they present it to us. And Chairman Rinder's ideas on whatever he has on the sheet, I would like to see it. But but I think some of these things might need to be considered. And but the idea of them doing it, I have no problem with. It's just that I don't think they should have the exclusive control once they put it together and present it and say this is it. I think the Tom say so should be at this level.
And that's why we keep the right to do it by local act if we want to at any time.
But we're talking after the fact.
Yeah, after they've drawn them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Basically, the same thing after it's drawn before it's approved. If
right.
we have some clout or control at that point before it's approved. But once it's approved, we have to come back later and change something that's already done. I think that's where it gets a little more complicated.
I think it's a great discussion we're having.
I agree.
And
I agree, Mr. Chairman.
And I'm still glad that I brought the bill, and I think it's a good idea. But
Chairman Reiners.
Thank you so much, and thank you. This has really been thought-provoking for me. There's a part of me, if I'm misreading, I do hear a universal concern. We have an obligation to be as efficient as we possibly can in government. And I am 100% dedicated to doing that. There's just a thought that, and I know we're on a timeline here a little bit, that maybe the best thing to do is to sit and let you view these recommendations before we take any action today with our friends from ACCG. And again, I apologize. That's my fault. You gave me a charge, and we call it the budget yesterday. But there's just a part of me that, since we're hearing these concerns, that we need to do our due diligence and to see if we can look at that, maybe get with Matt Hicks, and then come back and let the whole committee know what maybe we come up with. They still may not like it. I don't know. We don't want to get in the middle of a dogfight back home. I'm absolutely convinced of that. But if you'll give me 60 seconds to tell a story. Last year, there was a school superintendent hired in a certain county that, according to criteria, was number 34 of number 37 on the list. I got tired of the emails asking me to stop it. And my only response was, I thought you wanted your local control. And the truth of the matter is, everybody wants local control until they don't like what their locals are doing.
yeah.
Okay? And then they want their daddies to come in here and save them. All right? Daddy. And
That's what
Thank you,
they
Chairman.
elect you for.
I told
to do this.
Mr. Hicks, I says, I cannot believe you're doing this because you're going to get into a county with 100,000 people and 70,000 of them are going to be in a city. All right? And 3 of your county commissioners are really going to be city commissioners. And those 2 other ones are going to be my precincts I have. And he's going to be coming to me going, what can we do to fix this? Because he doesn't like what the city's doing in those negotiations on services and things with the counties. Now, that's going to happen. We all know it. And so I just think that perhaps if we can look at making sure that we have some kind of stopgap measures in this legislation, and I apologize to my friend Mr. McKillop for going over a minute on the story, but I just think that might be the best approach.
But the other side of the coin is under the present system, you still have that same problem because you'd have to do your redistricting of that county by local act.
Right.
So you could still be called on to either stop it or to make it happen.
Yeah, but I'd rather be able to make sure I could blame them.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
That is all of the questions from the committee at this point. What would be the posture of the committee?
I think maybe some other people here to speak to it. I don't know.
Well, I do want to be respectful, and I'd be happy to do that. I do want to be respectful of our time. It's 5 to 11. I know the Appropriations Committee has a lot of work to do today. So, Mr. Hicks, would you like to briefly address the committee?
Very briefly, Matthew Hicks with the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. I appreciate the conversation you've had and the deliberations this morning. They've been very informative and think that's good. Just 4 quick points. The reason that we do support this is for the administrative efficiencies. We provided a list, and I'll be happy to get it to every member of the committee to see the county reapportionment bills that were passed after the last census. And it can take 2, 3, or more years before the county local acts are completed. So this would remove one step in the process so that those reapportionment changes can be enacted more quickly. And y'all have covered most of the points that the majority of the time we find that the local delegation does agree with what the county commission does. In terms of what cities have done, the question came up of local legislation on cities. There were 35 local acts affecting the reapportionment of cities from 2000 to 2010. Looks like 11 of them are specifically only reapportionment. The others had to do with charter changes and a few other different issues. So 11 out of the 530 or so cities in the state needed to come and have a local act passed. So that's about around 2%. Support the changes in the bill of a sunset so that it only applies to the census that's being done and these changes and doesn't go on after that. And also our intent has not been to, and appreciate Chairman Reinders for bringing these concerns to ACCG. The intent has not been to remove the ability of the local delegation to trump the county reapportionment plans. And so look forward to working to support whatever we need to do that. If you have any questions, I can get you all this information to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. And being conservative with our time, I'd ask the committee to bring any questions to Mr. Hicks. In the meantime, may I make a suggestion to the committee that maybe our posture is for Chairman Reinders to provide the comments to the chairman, and maybe in the next day or two, Chairman, at his discretion, call another meeting to discuss this issue further.
All right.
All right. Any other comments from the committee?
Appreciate y'all listening to me.
At this time, the committee is adjourned. Thank you.